Welcome to the Listen Up podcast, where we explore hearing loss, communication, connections, and health.
Hey everybody, Dr. Mark Sims here. I'm the host of the Listen Up podcast, where I feature top leaders in healthcare. This episode is brought to you by Listen Up Hearing Center. I help patients to effectively treat their hearing loss so that they can remain independent and better connected with their family and friends. The reason I'm so passionate about hearing loss is I lost my brother Robbie twice. First to the hearing loss from radiation to his brain tumor, and then when he passed away. I am the E of ENT. I only care for ears. I have performed over 10,000 ear surgeries and taken care of many more patients with hearing loss. I'm the founder of Listen Up Hearing Center, and I've also written a book by the same name, Listen Up, A Physician's Guide to Effectively Treating Your Hearing Loss. If you want to learn more about that, go to listenuphearing.com. That's listenuphearing.com. Today, I'm excited. We have a great guest. It's Morgan R. Hutchings. He's a Kolbe certified consultant and a strategic communication coach. He's the catalyst behind building great teams for a growing list of private practices in audiology. His specialties include strategic analysis, establishing and reinforcing core values, open communication, and instilling discipline so that your team can thrive while fulfilling the entrepreneurial vision. We're excited to learn more about his perspective on leadership and communication. Morgan, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. I'm really excited to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me here, Mark. I really appreciate it.
Oh, that's great. So tell me a little bit about your, you're doing Kolbe stuff, which we can explain to the listeners what that is in a bit. And you're helping with coaching and helping with the organizational behaviors and stuff. So tell me about your pathway to that. So how did you get into this?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Mark. And it's one that I think in my short career in the industry, I've really found my place, I feel like, which isn't often something that people find quickly. So I feel very fortunate to be as involved with creating teams and architect of team building in the industry that I am. I'm very fortunate to find it early. I've only been doing this for about 5 years in audiology. And I started at the beginning, which I also think isn't too terribly common in our industry. Literally starting up front, answering the phone, being what we call a patient experience coordinator, and learning that side of the business, to the phones, to becoming an HIS in the state of Utah, realizing I wanted nothing to do with patient care, although I have the utmost respect for individuals like yourself, audiologists, HISs. It just wasn't for me.
For the listeners, I'm sorry, Morgan. HIS are people who dispense hearing aids. They're hearing aids.
Thank you. Wasn't for me. I wanted to be in the team side of things. I wanted to be in the hiring and the firing and the holding people accountable and building of the teams. And so very early on in that career, the former managers left of the clinic that I was in here in Utah, and I was fortunate enough to step into that position. And I mean, it lit me up. Being in control of the team there and adding to the team members, holding the people accountable is sort of what started it all for me in the industry. So I feel very fortunate to find that as early as I did, and now just getting to capitalize on, as you know, how many professionals in our industry that set out to help people. That's where a lot of the origin stories, mine's a little bit different, but maybe for yourself, a lot of people in our industry set out to help people, not to own a business, have 15 employees, try to make payroll every month. Like, they came with a lot of other things, right, that they weren't really accounting for when they were going through their years of school or getting their credentials. And so we see a lot of the business professionals and HISs, audiologists, people that own these clinics that they didn't necessarily know that other side of the business that they were getting themselves into. They just wanted to help people. And so that's where I come in, and that's really what I love doing, and I'm so fortunate to find that as early as I did.
So you started managing, it sounds like management by emergency, which is okay sometimes. And so what were some of the early things you learned as you were managing the audiology practice?
Yeah. And I think the things that I learned early on are still true to this day with a lot of people that own the clinic is not understanding what gets people to thrive. It's why I love that word so much, is what I noticed really quickly, and I think I've noticed this my whole life, it's easy to pick up on if you're paying attention to the people around you, is some people in this journey through life are thriving. They love what they do. They love their home life. They love their personal life, their professional life. I mean, every day they're just like a spark of hope in this world, and they bring joy in everybody's life. And then there's other people that are just surviving. And
Sure.
the same is true in our businesses, right? There's just people that are getting through, they're clocking in, they're clocking out, they're sort of mundane, and they just survive. They just get through the world. And then we had a few employees that were just like thriving. And the more I put my thumb on why they were thriving, the more I understood that their passion in life and what they loved doing was so closely aligned to what the clinic was trying to do, whether that was growing and scaling the business, starting treatment on patients that have hearing loss, changing people's lives. You see the grumpy patient walk in the office and then leave happy.
Sure.
Those type of things that lit that employee up was what made them thrive. So one of the things that I noticed really early on is the former management staff not understanding people, not paying attention closely enough to the humans that were working around them, right? And there's a great saying that I love that businesses don't move people, people move businesses. And it was so true, right? I noticed right away that there were just people in the business that were not excited to be there. And through getting to know them and communicating well, which is what I have my degree in, bachelor's degree in communication, I found out really quickly that there were little things that you can provide in a human's life that does stimulate them. It allows them to thrive, even if, for myself, seeing patients wasn't for me. The team's aspects were for me. There were people in our office that maybe the interaction with the patient wasn't the thing for them, but providing services in other ways were. And I saw a change in a lot of the employees going from clocking in and out at 9 to 5 and just kind of getting through life to enjoying working it and wanting to be on this team that was developing. And that really like lit their fuse. I mean, that really got them going. So as elementary as that might sound, and people might say, well, yeah, Morgan, that's obvious, listen to your people. Boy, is that one overlooked. I mean, I noticed right away that there were people in the organization who were, not really a part of the organization, I guess is a good way to sum that up.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't take that take. I mean, I think what's fascinating about it is the comment applies beyond audiology, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, it applies everywhere. And so sometimes the simplest insights in hindsight are the most powerful. And so I think that's really important. So, just as a matter of application. So you talked about doing little things that help people become more aligned and more sparking their light. So what would be those simple strategies? Like if you were to say, if somebody said, yeah, hey, this really resonates with me, Morgan, I'm thinking about where I work and I'm trying to get some people to be lit up. What would be those like 3 first things or things you would suggest, 1, 2, 3, everybody likes a few steps, right?
Yeah. A few bullet points, right? A few takeaways. Great question. The first and foremost for me, monthly meetings. Everybody has different schedules. Some people that might have doctorate degrees like yourself, you have more time, you don't have more time. Business owners, maybe your management staff, you're a team leader. I think everybody can afford 1 hour a month. And depending on the size of your team, if you're about 20 people or less, I think you can afford about an hour a month with your staff. And I'm talking offsite, I'm talking lunch, coffee, whatever is a part of your company culture. So if you've never done that before, ever, I don't expect you to just like shift it tomorrow and start taking everybody to lunch. It's going to take you some time. But one-on-one meetings, 1 hour per month with that individual is going to help you understand what gets them going. So that would be my first and foremost, 1 hour meetings. If you're not having those one-on-one meetings with your staff right now, you're failing them as a leader. You're not getting to know them as a person, as a human. You're not having empathy towards what gets them going, what wakes them up in the morning, what wakes them up in the middle of the night and gets them thinking about the business. So meetings have to happen.
Sure.
You've got to start tracking the data. I think so often in all businesses across the board, we work with some real estate agents and finance people. Across the board, you have to track data for the purpose of helping the individual, not just holding them accountable, and most importantly, not just getting them in trouble. I think a lot of business owners, a lot of managers, a lot of team leaders, we have this data, and there's a lot of people in our industry that do a great job tracking data, but they don't know what to do with it. And so if you're going to track data, you've got to look for trends, and then you've got to say to yourself, how can I help this employee succeed? And you can help them through those monthly meetings. So if you're going to have the data on a front office staff person and you know that they answer phones for you and they could do a little bit better job answering the phones for you, you want to see those phone numbers come up a little bit, whether it's missed calls or booking rate or whatever it is. You go to a meeting once a month with them and you talk to them about how good they're doing and how good these numbers are and what the past 3 months looks like and what a projection looks like in the future. And you're updating them about how good they're doing at work. So you've got to have data. You've got to have the data so you can have a real conversation, not based on feelings. I feel like you're a good employee. I feel like you're doing good. But no, you're actually doing amazing. You're doing tremendous. Or, hey, I think there is room for improvement here. I've seen what you're capable of, and your numbers are coming down just a little bit. And I'm guessing maybe something changed. What can I do to help? Those types of conversations are so much healthier than, hey, your numbers are down this month. It's the second month in a row that your numbers are down. You better change something around, right? It comes that carrot or the stick approach, right? And then number third for me is just setting those short-term goals. I think us as humans, in general, we like to achieve, right? And especially if you believe that you've hired good people, you believe you have a good team, you have a good culture, the best thing you can do for them is help them set those short-term goals and help them achieve those goals so they feel better about themselves. They feel better about the work that they're doing inside your organization. So for me, monthly meetings, which I think everybody can afford, and people are going to tell me, no, I can't do it. You can. I think you can. Once a month meetings with everybody, track the data, look for trends. Don't do the one-off, seagull management where you disappear for a few weeks and then you come back and you sort of punish everybody. We call that like the leave alone zap. If you've ever read The 1 Minute Manager, where the manager comes in and gets mad at everybody because all the numbers are gone and then disappears for a while and then looks at the numbers again and then shows back up and gets mad at everybody. Look for trends, look for positivity. And then number 3, set those short-term goals. Look at 90 days or less was what I would say, so that people can achieve and start feeling good about what they're doing for you.
No, I think that's great. I actually, interesting when you were talking about the meetings, I think you could almost argue it's not that you have the time, you almost can't afford not to have those meetings, right? Because in the end, it makes you more inefficient and you lose more time because you're not aligned or things aren't moving forward like you would like.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more.
So I mean, the thing is about it, Morgan, is you've got all this stuff. I mean, is this self-taught or, how did you get to this place? You know what I'm saying?
A lot of it, I think college teaches us a lot of things. I mean, I know you've gone to school more than I have. I think college teaches us a lot of things, but I think one of the most important things that college can teach us is the idea of critical thinking. And I think for me in my relationship with the people that I work around, my professional career, my personal life, my ability to realize that I get paid to solve problems. So when there's problems in the business and I realize, man, that happens a lot. There's not just one employee that's not engaged. There's 3 employees. There's something going on there. There's not just one person that their numbers are down. There's 5 employees that their numbers are down. There's these things happening around us if you're paying attention. And if you have critical thinking, you have the ability to say, maybe somebody in this life has had these problems before and they've solved it successfully. So for myself, I was fortunate enough to put myself and have my parents, a ton of help from my parents, shout out mom and dad if they ever see this, for helping me get through school, which was absolutely huge for me in getting my degree in communication. And number 2, staying conscious enough in my life to realize that the things that were happening around me weren't just happening to Morgan. They were happening in Mark's business and John's business and Emmett's business, and all around us they were happening. And most likely there's other people in the world that have solved those problems successfully. And if you pay attention, there's great books, there's great podcasts like this one that you can learn nuggets from. And I tell everybody this, don't go to a podcast like Mark's or read a book saying, I've got to learn everything that Mark can possibly teach me. Learn that one nugget. Just learn that one little thing from someone that might help you change 10% better. Don't look for that perfection, just look for progress. And the same has been true for me. So I don't claim to know all answers. I think I understand people fairly well. And I realized very early in my life, people get paid to solve problems. And the quicker you can solve a problem, the more efficiently you can solve a problem, the better it is for everyone. And the same is true for people. Our humans that are in our business, they have problems as well. And the quicker you can solve their problems, the quicker they can help you grow your business.
No, that's great. That's great advice. And so, you do consultant work, if I'm not mistaken. And so you go in. So tell me about some of, obviously you don't have to share the specific people, but like what are some of the great wins that you, like some of the bigger wins you consider in the recent past?
Yeah, totally. So just in our own business, and we'll keep all the names innocent, protected, whatever. Just recently, we set a goal with a new employee. She's been with us for less than 6 months for sure. I was going to say 90, but less than 6 months for sure. And one of her goals was to move out of her mother's home. Her and her daughter, single mom, they were living in her mother's home and they were taking care of each other. And it was a very healthy family environment, but she wanted to get out of it. She wanted to be out on her own with her daughter and be a little bit more independent. And as you know, with the economy and inflation and things that are happening, it's a little harder for the younger generation to do those things right now.
Sure.
And so we set up a plan where she could earn X amount of dollars in what we call in our business a level up program, where she could level herself up in the business, have some more things that she was accountable for in the office, and also earn some more money. And within the 6 months time period, she just started knocking things out. And what I found, and you've probably found this for a ton of people, is that I didn't assign her that, right? I didn't want to move out of her mom's house. She did. That was an intrinsic motivation. That's something that she decided to do. So once she latched onto this idea that I could move my daughter and I out of this place and we could get what we wanted if I just did these things in the business, boy, she took off. I mean, right away, like I said, less than 6 months. Who does that as an employee? Typically in the first 6 months, an employee's still trying to get comfortable with the office culture and their job and their regulations in the office. For her, I mean, it just lit her up. And I just got a text from her last week that she does have her own apartment now. Mom's doing totally great on her own. She has some in-home care now that's taking care of her. And her daughter now are in their own apartment. And that's a big one. I mean, that's not easy to do. Not an average employee typically does that. It's a huge win. It doesn't happen often. I can only think of 2 employees that I've worked with in the 5 years that have done something that major. But to see this young gal realize the potential that she had in her own personal life by helping the business be successful, marrying those two together, and you use the word alignment, aligning those 2 goals and helping her realize what you want and what we want are the same, man, she just took off. And it was awesome to see her take that transformation on and then now get that text last week that she's finally in her own apartment in like 6 months or less was just awesome.
What I love about that example is it's all from the team member's perspective, not from the business owner's perspective. Yeah. In other words, that's probably the magic of it, that the business bore the benefit by aligning with the team members' desires and goals.
Yeah, and we've made that, if I can add one more thing, Mark, just because I don't want people to get the wrong idea here. None of our doctors, none of our providers here, none of our office staff are paid on commission. We made that mistake years ago when I first started to have those like bonus incentives of like, hey, you make 10 phone calls, I'll pay you X dollars. You sell X amount of hearing aids, I pay you. That is not, we dropped that a long time ago. Nothing against anybody that does. There's nothing, necessarily wrong with that in our industry or any business in general. But what we have found is allowing them to set those short-term goals in front of themselves. So the goal she had in a year was to become onboarded properly with our process in mind. So we have an onboarding process they have to follow. It takes them about 90 days to 6 months or so. Really should take about 90 days. And she did that. She knocked it out of the park. She understood all the process and how to take care of the patient, the language we want her to use. She was going to plan a symposium. A lot of people in our industry call them like a lunch and learn, educational symposium in our area, where we were going to get a bunch of our patients in the same room and educate them on hearing loss and cognitive decline. And she was going to plan that all by herself, which she did. It was another thing that she earned off of her list. And then she wanted to become better at public speaking. So in our area, we have a thing called Toastmasters. Yeah. She signed herself up to become better at public speaking. It's something that she felt like if she could get better at that, she'd be better in front of the patients. In those 3 things, as she leveled herself up in the company, she did these little things that would not just help her, but also help the business. She was going to earn more money along the way. So it wasn't one of these short-term, you do X and I'll give you Y. Again, it was something that was intrinsic. It was her motivation to get out. And we just attached to things that would be beneficial to the business. And it worked wonderfully. And it works a lot of times it works for a highly driven employee who fits well into the company culture. It works really well. You hire somebody who's not personally driven or they don't have motivation in their life, or they don't fit into the company culture really well, you might hit a few snags. But I just wanted to make sure that was clear that no commission or anything like that.
Actually, it's interesting because as you probably are aware, that statement that we don't do commission, that's somewhat contrary to most of the structure within the hearing community. Correct?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's actually an interesting topic. So tell me a little bit about why you came to that conclusion and what your substitute for that is.
Yeah, it might seem, I don't know what the word.
A little contrarian, maybe.
Yeah, and it's not, not to make it sound like we're perfect in any realm. The simple answer is,
I assume you have your own reasons.
We sure do. Yeah. The really simple answer for us was that we didn't want our, at that time, full audiologist staff. Everybody was an audiologist in our team. We didn't want any of our doctors looking at the patients with a price tag. I got to get this sale, or I'm not going to pay my X, Y, and Z off, or I've got to get this. We wanted to fully eliminate sales. We dropped the word sales and hearing aids and all that stuff a long time ago. We talk about the medical treatment of hearing loss. We talk about the empathy that we have for our patients. And we wanted to get that through like in our culture, not just in the words that like your boss is saying, like, hey, we're not a sales team, but in the culture of our office. We wanted everybody to understand this isn't about just selling hearing aids and the unfortunate stigma of hearing aids that a lot of people still have is there for a reason. And we really wanted to break that mold of for some people, how we're viewed in our industry.
Right.
And so the most simplest answer for us is we didn't want to put our doctors in a position of, now I'm stressed, right? I got to sell this car, I've got to sell this thing in order to be okay in my life. We just wanted to match them with their pay for where they were comfortable, and then add on bonuses, things that they felt like fulfilled them in their life. So we have some audiologists that like being on camera. So every Friday on Tuesdays, he goes live on Facebook to all of our patients that follow us on Facebook. And he talks for an hour and he comes up with his own agenda and his own curriculum, and whatever he wants to hand out is all his. It makes him feel amazing. And I'm sure you can see how business wise, that's good for business.
Sure.
We have some audiologists that love getting on stage. So those symposiums are huge for us to drive patients into an educational event and talk to them about some of the symptoms they're experiencing are absolutely huge. Other doctors don't want anything to do with any of that. They just want to perfect treatment process. So they want to make sure that like everybody in the office is doing everything at the same dB and at the same frequency over here, and making sure that the quality control is taken care of. And that makes them feel fulfilled. So for us, it was just like, how much, if you took what you were going to earn plus a commission, what's your perfect world? How much money do you need to earn to take care of your family and feel secure? And then on top of that, if you wanted to earn more money, there's no ceiling on top of you. Let's come up with a level up program where you could earn more money by doing things that are of a benefit to not only yourself, but the business and the people that you work around.
Interesting. I mean, that's great. I mean, obviously, as long as the revenue supports the business costs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There's still definitely a line there of the cost of goods and everything else.
Right. Well, that's great. And I assume that works for you. In other words, finding or how do the people find what their particular thing is? In other words.
Great question. Not everybody knows. I mean, I've had a mentor through my professional career. I've been lucky enough to have a mentor, and some of those new employees, like this young gal I was talking about that just moved out. I consider myself, her mentor. I'm someone that she goes to with struggles and fears of overcoming what maybe she's fallen short of in the past. And so we have a mentorship program in the office that, like I said, those once a month meetings, they actually happen weekly for us, one-on-one weekly meetings. They do happen monthly as a whole team, and then they happen quarterly one-on-one, like performance reviews, if you will. And we got all of this, by the way, it's not like Morgan's original idea. We got all of this from EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, and it's worked for us. Every niche that's out there, I think EOS is working with. Wonderful book, What the Heck is EOS?
Traction.
And yeah, Traction, amazing. Yes, thank you, Mark. Traction, I tell every business owner should read Traction because it's like, it's right there, right? You have to set short-term goals out for your people. You've got to explain to them the why behind what you're doing. And then you've just got to have them keep track of that data and make sure you're having those regular meetings. So for us, it is mentorship through regularly scheduled one-on-one meetings.
So what do you rate your L10s?
So yeah, the L10s, that's so fun. It's so fun to always talk to somebody else that like gets it, right?
But just for the listeners, you rate your meeting, and you're supposed to have a leadership meeting that's a 10, 0 to 10. So you get to rate it yourself. So it's supposed to be over an 8 or an 8.5. So I'm just kind of throwing the jargon at Morgan, right?
Yeah. So we hover right there around an 8. We very seldom, I think we're totally, honest with ourselves. No 10s, no none of that. And we like that. But one of the fun things, and this goes for anybody, even if you're not using EOS, if you are running meetings with your staff, even if it is one-on-one or in a group setting, rating them can be so helpful. Because if Mark and I are in a meeting together and, so-and-so, Jared asked Morgan, what would you rate the meeting on a scale from 1 to 10? 1 being terrible, 10 being amazing. How do we do today discussing and solving the issues that we brought to the table? And I'm like, I think we did a 9. I think we did amazing. And Mark comes in and Mark's like, I think we did a 4. It's so powerful to be able to say, hey, Mark, I totally respect that you rated this meeting a 4. What can we change next time? Because we're going to do this again. What can we change next time to bring that score up a little bit? And now I'm including Mark. Yeah.
Same data. It's just data about the meeting to help you iteratively improve it. So yeah, it's
I love that. Thank you, Mark. I love that. That's so fun.
Sure. And so the other thing that's interesting to me, so, where do you fit? Tell a little bit about Kolbe, what that is, and where do you fit that in?
Yeah. And Kathy Kolbe, she's right down there in your neck of the woods. She's right down in Phoenix.
My daughter went to grade school with her granddaughter. So.
Oh, nice. Small world, right? So Kathy Kolbe, who developed this Kolbe idea, Kolbe, she studied a person's instinct. So if you're familiar with like Strengths Finder, oh man, what are the other ones? We use them all, by the way. 13 personalities or 16 personalities.
Disc profile,
exactly. She really started to study. Maybe there's something deeper here. Maybe there's instincts that nobody's studying here. And she called that the cognitive side of the mind. So I'll give you the very short version of why I love it. We use it for all of our new hires. So when we come up with a job description, we're going through our hiring process. I get a great candidate that I think might fit into the office culture, might fit operationally. I send them a Kolbe. And we kind of have a picture of a Kolbe. So you can take a quiz as a leader or a manager and say, what type of a Kolbe do I think fits in this position for the work? And then when Mark applies, Mark gets sent a Kolbe and I say, hey, does this Kolbe fit into this picture? Is this a good hire Kolbe wise? Which is why we use it most often is for hiring. The thing that really snagged me when I went down there to get certified with Kathy years ago down in Phoenix is she explained it this way. She said there's 3 parts of the mind. The first one would be cognitively, things that we learn. Read a book, get smarter, go to school, get more education. You can change that about yourself. I could learn EOS and I could start implementing EOS, and cognitively I would change. Then you have your personality side of your mind, and that can change. What Morgan liked when I was 9 years old is different today. Likes and dislikes or what motivates me is different. Right. And then there's the cognitive side of the mind, and that's never changed. And that can't be true. And then you start looking at the tests and the retests and all these studies that she's done on people from 7 to 19 to 35 years old. And the Kolbe stays so similar. And I thought back to when I was 9 years old, and I remember this like it was yesterday. I had a cousin that I looked up to greatly, like one of those cousins that's just like, that's who I want to be when I grow up, older than I was. We're in his garage speaking one day. We're just hanging out like kids do. I'm like 10 years old. And he turns to me and says, Morgan, you ask too many questions. You talk too much. And I'm like, oh man, like my hero just told me I asked too many questions. Fast forward all these years later, I'm taking the Kolbe and she said, Morgan, you're a fact finder. I'm a 9 in fact finding. My Kolbe's somewhere down there in the corner, 9425. You're a fact finder. Your superpower, what you're amazing at, what you should always be doing is asking questions. Always ask questions. And I went, that's the opposite of how I've been living the last 16, 20 years of my life, because this one individual said you ask too many questions. And I just started saying, how many other people, if Morgan had this experience, and I tend to think myself a pretty strong-willed individual, if I had this experience when I was a little kid and I changed my way of life because he told me not to ask questions, and now I'm discovering that's exactly what I should be doing, that's what I'm good at, how many other employees have gone through similar experiences, and how many other people need coaching through, Mark, this is what you're exceptional at. Like you're so good at creating ideas and you're so good at this, and this is what you need to do more of. But in school, they told Mark not to come up with ideas and to sit quietly and to pay attention. But Mark really wants to create ideas, and that's exactly who we need in the business. So I really latched on that idea of 3 parts of the mind, and cognitively speaking, or your instincts as a person has never changed. And I said, yeah, it's genius. Why wouldn't we hire somebody based on their instincts? Because that's never changed. That's who we are as a person. So why not put somebody in that position to operate within those instincts?
That's great. That's great stuff. So it sounds like you've really gone deep in terms of trying to figure out the stuff, how to get your team aligned and get them all going, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And humans are still humans, right? I mean, any given day we could go through things at home. We could go through things professionally. I get phone calls all the time from my coaching clients that say, I'm so frustrated with Mark. He just doesn't get it. And Mark's a phones person, and Mark's not getting it, and he doesn't care anymore. And I just don't know what I'm going to do. And my question asking gets kicked in. And I said, well, what do you think changed? Mark, you said Mark was a great employee last year or 6 months ago. What do you think changed? I don't know. I don't have time to figure it out. Well, lo and behold, Mark is at home and just found out that he has cancer.
Right.
Mark at home just found out that his wife has 6 months to live.
Sure.
Mark at home just found out that his son got ran over by a car. Well, yeah, his performance is down because you never bothered to ask. And it's a dramatic example, but it's a true example. And I think so often in business, it just gets so lost. The human element gets so lost, and it sounds so simple until it doesn't, until you're in the moment that your business isn't making as much money as you want it to make, or you're halfway through the year and you realize that your profits are down compared to last year, or you realize that your missed call rate is up, or whatever the thing is that's triggering a business owner, and they want to go blame somebody. They're not realizing that it's a human. It's not just a number that you're looking at, but it's a human. And the more you realize and the more you have empathy towards those humans, they're the ones that will move your business, right? And I think for myself, not being a business owner, not being a doctor, I fit so well in this middle realm of, I know what you're saying and I know what you're saying. Now let's just get in the same room and say it to each other.
Well,
right?
it's coaching, right? Putting the players together and getting the team to maximize its benefit, right? Or its outcomes, right? That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, that's great stuff, Morgan. I really appreciate you sharing it with us. It's and I can tell as you're talking about it, you're very passionate about it because you really like grooving on it. So that's great. So Morgan, what's your favorite sound?
Yes, thank you. I knew you were going to ask this. You said it wasn't going to be a stumper, but I've been thinking about it. I have to say, because I do travel a lot, I'm away from home a lot, I've got to go with the FaceTime sound. There's only two people in my life that FaceTime me, and I hear that little ding chime sound, and it's either my 4-year-old son or it's my 1-year-old daughter that already knows how to click the button. And it doesn't matter. I know I'm going to answer it, and I'm going to see a little tiny face that kind of looks like me and kind of looks like my wife. And I love it because that's kind of, in today's world, that's our connection, whether I'm at lunch or I'm traveling or whatever. That's our little 15 minutes of us time that we get here and there. So I got to go FaceTime sound.
That's wonderful. And so if you were having a lifetime achievement and award ceremony and they asked you, who do you thank? In other words, who would be the people you would thank for getting you where you are today? Who would be those people? Yeah,
great question. You're good at this, Mark. So first and foremost, got to thank my mom. The reason I got to thank mom is she's the one that told me to trust my gut, but listen to my heart. And my whole life, that's been true for me. Always go with your gut instinct, but you got to listen to your heart. If your heart tells you it's not right, something's not right. So I got to thank mom on that one. I got to thank my wife. Absolutely got to thank my wife for she's the one that got me through college. She's the one that got me to today. Absolutely. And then I've got to thank Jared Brader, Dr. Keith Darrow. They're the ones that started me on this whole path of audiology. And I'd never be here today. I'd never be coaching if it wasn't for those two guys doing what they do in our industry. So. No,
that's great. That's great stuff.
That's my list. I'm sticking to it.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. It sounds highly defendable too. So, Morgan, if people wanted to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
Awesome. So I would love to send everybody. I have a book. I just ordered your book as well, Mark. I wish I would have done it before this because I would have interviewed you back.
No worries.
If you go to www.whytheythrive.com, whytheythrive.com, I'd love to send everybody a free book. If you're not into that and you just want to hear more about Morgan, just email me, morgan@audexperts.com, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
But I guess they can get you at whytheythrive.com as well.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
So that's the name of your book. That's great. Congratulations.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. Is it okay if I send you a copy, Mark?
Sure, that'd be great.
Awesome.
I mean, that's really wonderful. I admire anybody who writes a book because I remember when I decided to write a book, I thought, oh, this won't be that bad. 18 months later, working nights and evenings, I was like, oh, okay, now it's finally born. So
it's really easy, right?
The concept of saying writing a book and writing a book are two different things, especially if you've got other things to do, right? I mean, if I were Stephen King and I wrote all day, I think it'd be a different thing, but I actually had a day job occupying me. So, well, this has been great, Morgan. I really appreciate you coming on. This has been a great episode, and I really appreciate your insights and, your ideas about the industry and helping us. So if anybody needs help getting their organization aligned or do better, reach out to Morgan. It sounds like he's dialed in and doing great stuff.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for doing what you do too. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Morgan. This has been great. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to the Listen Up podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get updates on future episodes.